Good evening and welcome once again to another edition of the Truth Hour. My name is Johnny Guzman. It's a pleasure to be here as always on this Monday, the 25th of June, 2012. Well, tonight's topic, are we really free? That is the big question. Most of us think we are. Well, we're going to talk to Santos Bonacci from Australia to get his take on this, I would say, interesting topic, because most of us do a lot of things, from healing work, from having knowledge of many things, but we really don't have a true understanding on what it is to be free. And what is this corporate you? We're going to ask Santos Bonacci all these interesting topics and get his take on it. But before we start, I'd like to remind you to send us your invitations to Facebook. You can find us there as QLP Multimedia. And for all of our previous programs that we recorded here in Quantum Leap Television, you can find it in our YouTube channel, QL Television. Very well. Let's bring in Santos Bonacci. Santos, good evening and welcome once again to another edition of the Truth Hour.
Hey, Johnny, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Santos, so are we really free? I mean, we have a lot of people have a lot of knowledge, a lot of knowing about a lot of things, right? But I think one of the things that we are lacking in understanding is this corporate you, this whole notion of these laws of maritime admiralty law and common law. There are only two laws that exist in this world, correct? Is the law of the oceans and the law of the land. So most of our audience have a notion of this. Although in the Spanish, our Spanish audience have no idea about this. Whether this means to have your name in capital letters and the birth certificate. We've talked about this, but I think very briefly. But I think even in our English audience as well, most people don't take this, I would say, seriously. You know, they do a lot of work in other things, in personal healing and understanding, the emotions and eating well. But they don't have a clear understanding on this corporate fictitious identity that the legal judiciary system has created upon us. So when did this whole concept begin, Santos? Or how do we begin to explain to our audience this whole idea that we are following the law of the seas? Santos.
Well, we probably need to just focus on the last 200 years, really. We can go back further, and I've done this in my videos to show how Rome, which is the seventh incarnation of Egypt, Babylon, etc., empire, Rome has developed a system in its empire mentality. You see, not the Republic of Rome. We're talking about the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire offered citizenship to people, you see, and that citizenship, that's the citizenship that is the foundation of this system that today is in use everywhere where there is common law or civil law. But in the last couple of 100 years, since the Rothschilds have taken over, since 1823, the Rothschilds began managing the Vatican's money. You see, they were the banksters or the banking families that looked after the Vatican's money, you see. Now, we can even go back further to Napoleon's days when Nathan Rothschild cleverly purchased all the English stocks, and overnight, suddenly, he controlled all of England, you see. Now, this particular family has been very, very active in the New World Order, you see. And there's been many dates whereby they have changed the course of history, especially in America. For instance, 1871, when the American corporation was founded. Now, the Rothschilds were behind that, and the Vatican. 1871 was when the basically when the Republic was finished, and the democratic or the democracy, the corporation based on democracy began. Now, 1871 was a real turning point, but also so was 1913 when the Federal Reserve Act was enacted, which caused America to be overrun by the banks, the private banks. And the other date that we need to focus on is 1933, when it was a law that everybody have a birth certificate, and that birth certificate could be used by the government as a security, as a bond, a securitized bond on the stock market, and that we would be collateral or chattel, but we would go surety for those bonds, because America was officially bankrupt, you see, in 1933. And you see what happened then. That was a big turning point. But all those other dates are very important too, and I go into those dates in my video. But the most important date was 1933, because that's when the system fully kicked in, and that system causes a citizen to be a person, a corporate person. Or not necessarily to be a person, to have a person. So you and I, both of us, we have a legal person. And usually that legal person is the all caps name that government institutions send to you in the mail. When you receive a letter from some government branch or some government department, it will have your name in all capital letters. Now, that's the person, corporate person that you have. It's not you. Now, so this person that we have, this is the person, the transmitting utility that they use in order to interact with us commercially, to do commerce with us, you see? And so the reason that we have not understood this is the reason why we have slowly more and more been enslaved by this system, because the government knows how to use the system, and they address you with the all caps name, so that you are then caused to think that that is you, and so you run off to court defending that name, imagining that it is you, and in so doing you've committed fraud. Now, the other thing about this name is it takes away your rights. You forego your rights with this name. You have privileges, services, and benefits. And so if you think that you have original jurisdiction rights, well, you don't. And so this is why the system is a system of enslavement, which serves the elite class, the controlling class. And so if you are in the system, which we all are, well, then we are not free. We are absolutely not free. The only way you can be free from the system is if you return that person back to the government. Now some people Some people believe that that is necessary to be free. Others are teaching that it is not necessary. For instance, the Postmaster General, James Thomas McBride, he is the Postmaster General in real jurisdiction, in original jurisdiction of the United States of America. The Postmaster General in fictional jurisdiction, or 14th Amendment jurisdiction, that's another person altogether. So James Thomas McBride is teaching that we don't need to necessarily detach ourselves from that person, but we can use that person and be the beneficiary. But we need to submit our documents to the government that allow us to do this. You see, what we have to do is notify the government that we are of age, we are sound in mind, we are responsible people, and that we wish to reclaim the functions of that birth certificate name. So, in other words, what you're doing is you're presenting yourself as a flesh blood person, and that you are going to be the beneficiary of that name. So there's a few different avenues of approaching this, but certainly the system that we live under is a system of slavery and not of freedom. So people who think that they are free are deluded and do not understand the true nature of the system that they live under.
Santos, okay, so let me understand this. You and I are human beings, right? So it is in our natural state, let's just say, we are free, correct? We have legal rights. I'm talking about as a human, breathing human being. But the person that they've created, this fictitious me or you, is part of the judiciary system, part of the legal system, and they don't have rights. They have what? Privileges? Is that correct? Am I understanding you right?
Yeah, yeah. Privileges, services, and benefits.
And in order to have those privileges, you have the birth certificate or the citizenship. That's the contract that binds us to that person, that corporate person.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, it's a transmitting utility. We can use it to do commerce with. We can use it to interact with them if we so need to. So there are benefits. Yeah, they are benefits, but the benefits usually stack up to their advantage, and of course they make use of those benefits. One way they make use of it is they make a lot of cash out of our Cestui KV accounts, you see. For instance, the banksters, and in particular the Rothschild family, they purchased those birth certificate bonds at around about $7 or $8 million each. It's private business. It's totally a private business. Now, the turnaround is about $1.2 billion. So having our birth certificates registered with the government and as securitized bonds on the stock market, they are doing business with our bonds, you see. And the turnaround is like 1,000%. It's a great business because they can use us as collateral, you see, because we're going to be working for 50 years of our lives until we retire. And so that service, that's guaranteed because we're in the system, you see. So they cash in on it, but other ways they cash in on it is because is the way they charge taxes and levies and rates, etc. When you pay income tax, which is even illegal, not only unlawful, but it is illegal in their system. When you pay that, you're actually giving cash to the banksters. It's not going into the government. No, none of these taxes go to the government, you see. Um, they go directly to the banksters, because you see, by using those notes of exchange, that money is supposed to be for exchange for services and for goods and services. It's not supposed to be used for accounting, for money of account, you see. So when we pay, for instance, a utility statement, not a bill, a utility statement, we're actually paying with money of exchange, which is not supposed to be used. We're supposed to discharge that debt with our signature. Because, you see, because everything is prepaid in this system. So they send you an electricity bill to tell you how much you've used. Not so that you should pay that amount with bills of exchange, with notes of exchange.
Santos, but in that moment, though, I mean, some people would say, okay, so I'll do that, and what if the electric company doesn't recognize this and they shut down my lights? Then what do I do?
Um, well, see, you need to learn how to do this properly, how to pay with paper. If they send you a paper saying you've used $200 of electricity, well, that's just a paper. By giving them money, you're actually they are pocketing a double amount of money, because they have already been paid. That's why they send you a statement. You see, so you're actually paying them. They are pocketing that money, and in so doing, you increase the national debt. That's why the national debt never goes away. It actually increases every year, because people are using their bills or their notes of exchange to pay things that have already been paid. So the guys that are benefiting are just a bunch of lawyers, a bunch of elites, a bunch of thugs, a bunch of criminals that know that they are using the system to benefit them. And you'll notice that their houses get bigger and bigger and bigger, and their businesses get richer and richer and richer. And the average person, the worker class, is clearly getting poorer and poorer and poorer and poorer, because they are using the wrong kind of money to pay for things that have already been paid for.
Santos, what about? I was reading somewhere that there's a lot of people who understand this concept, and they're sending documents to the government to reclaim, as you say, dominion and to reclaim their rights. But within those documents that they're sending, they're putting all kinds of crazy things, like, you know, every time you use my name, you're gonna have to pay me $6 million or whatever. You know, and a lot of that stuff, it's later used against them, because somehow, some way, that, you know, they find a way to interpret that we, or the person that sends that document, doesn't understand the proper law, and therefore they can be held accountable for whatever it is that they're in court for. So what can you tell us about that? I mean, because I've read some crazy things that people are writing in these documents that are sending back to the government. Santos.
Yeah, they're confusing trust law with contract law or equity law. As you said before, you mentioned the two laws, the civil and the common, but there's also equity law or contract law. And so with contract law, there's no requirement for anyone to provide disclosure, you see. And in particular, in regard to birth certificates and the business that they are carrying on behind the scenes, they're not required to tell you that, you see. So if you belligerently make statements about, you know, here's my schedule of fees, and if you use my name, which is copyrighted, etc., you can't copyright the name. You see, I can't copyright Santo Bonacci really in their system. They will not acknowledge it. You can do it, you can try doing it, and you can think that it's a protection, but it's not. Because you can't copyright a name that they have. Well, they've registered it for a start. So, in a sense, they own that name. So when you go making claims about that name, you're already creating a controversy, and they know that. They're going to get you. You know, if you start saying, "Oh, that's my name, you can't use that," well, the truth of the matter is that you yourself cannot use that name in such a way to identify. No one can use that name to identify you as a flesh blood human being. Those documents are non-identifiable. So, and the government knows this, you see. Well, judges do, that's for sure. A judge will never say to you, what is your name for the record? And you turn around and you say, my name's Johnny Guzman. And then he turns around and says, well, can you show me your birth certificate to prove that? Because that never happens in court. The reason why is because they can't use the birth certificate to identify you. It's non-identifiable. So really, they're getting away with fraud by using that name too. But they do it carefully. You see, they don't ask you to prove who you are. They just say, what's your name? And hope that your name turns out to be the same as the name on those papers. And then their next presumption is they're hoping that you are going to talk to that name and give it life, because that name's dead. It's just a corpse, or in other words, a corporation. Same thing, dead paper. So if you walk in there and the judge says, oh yeah, well, what's your name, please? He's just hoping that one of us, one of the two parties is going to be dumb enough to identify themselves with that name, which is fraud. So the moment you've committed fraud, he's happy. He just sits back then and just goes, oh, great. Right, this is going to be easy now. I can just get away with anything. Jail, fines, and he will be the beneficiary. He's turned the tables on you. You've become the trustee. He's become the beneficiary. So now he's going to benefit because he's going to pocket all that cash you give him, and he's going to go off and spend it. Because when you go to jail, the time you spend in jail has a commercial dollar figure attached to it. For every minute you spend in jail, there's a ratio of cash that they make. So it's a business, and that's clearly evident by the fact that many people who are in jail are not true criminals. They've gone into jail over civil matters, which does not constitute them as criminals, and say 90% of people that are in jail are actually not criminals. They're just in there to pay the lawyers and criminals that have managed to find a way to get them in there so that they can have cash in their pockets, because they make money on those bonds, on those court cases, which are just constructive trusts. Every court case is a constructive trust. You see, it's all something to do with the stock market and making money and banking. So it benefits them, and it also benefits you in the negative. So you can't jump up and down and say, well, I want my rights. No, wait a minute. You've got a birth certificate. You're registered with the government. Someone owns that name, and you've complied. You haven't come back after 7 years and notified the government that you are flesh, blood, and you are sane, and you are able to administer your own affairs. Therefore, you are the beneficiary of your account. Until such time, we're going to be the beneficiaries. You see?
Santos, is this why when the police stop you, the first thing they ask you is, let me see ID and what's your name? Is that why they say that?
Yeah, because they cannot contract with flesh blood human being. They cannot. They can't see you. But
But
they
they don't
can
know.
see.
But they don't know this, right? They're just doing it because they think that's what the law says, right? The first thing that comes out of the mouth is, "Let me see your identification. What's your name?" Or are they aware of this? The police.
Um, I would say 5 to 10% would be aware of it. The other 90%, they don't care. They just want a job. Now, they just want to do their job. And they've been told that the correct procedure when you interact with someone in the private, because that's what it is, you know, when you stop someone on the road, you're actually stopping them. You're stopping a flesh blood individual. You see, so but the reason they can do this is because they know more than likely that you are going to have that registered name in their books. Well, even though the policemen are just an agency and they don't own the name either, but they know that their buddies own the name, some government department, some registry, some bank. So they've been instructed that when they apprehend someone, the first thing you want to do is get their corporate dead name, so that the person you apprehend can give life to that name, and therefore you can interact with that third party transmitting utility, that medium by which both of you can interact. Because what he's going to do is, if you give him the name and you agree to create joinder to that name, then he's able to write to that name, Santo Bonacci, $100 fine, and he gives you that and he says, there's a fine for you, or for the person that you have. And then what he does is he certifies his papers, his portion of the paperwork. He certifies them so they become securities also, you see, and they become real money. So the judge can actually see that in court. The judge can see his papers, that they are certified papers, and therefore they are real money. So the prosecution, they turn up with real money. You turn up with nothing. You turn up with a bit of paper, an affidavit signed, you know, whatever, and it's not certified, so it's not real money. And in the public world, because they're dealing in the public, not the private now, you see, you're not a human being in the private. You are a person in the public now, in the public system. And you're turning up in court and you've got no certified documents or anything like that. He can't see your papers. You're just talking like this, blah, 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 blah. I'm Santo Bonacci. I don't want to pay this fine. I resist. I don't care. I don't. And he can't hear you. He can't even see you, but he can see the policeman's papers. These are real papers. These have got, these are notarized papers. So guess who's going to win?
Santos. So then, this is why when the human beings that know their rights, when they go to court and the judge asks them, "What is your name, sir?" Then they refuse to give their names, and they say, "Well, that doesn't matter," or "I'm here to represent the name that you call Johnny." But is this why they do this? So they don't go into this contract with the law, or with the judge?
Well, well, well. You see, since 1871, or even earlier, you can go back to the days of John Adams. Um, we have been at war. You see, so it's it's it, it's a police state. It's martial law. You see, America, for instance. Let's just deal with America. They they're under martial law since the days of Abraham Lincoln. You see, and every new president since then has re-signed signed on and continued the martial law, because then what that does is it makes you a bellicose belligerent. So it makes you're at war with the government. So they consider, so when you go into court and you say, no, I refuse to I'm not that name, you immediately are creating a controversy. You are not peaceful. So they've got you. What one should do is one should ask questions. There is only one way to succeed in court. If you're going to hang on to your name, which you might want to do, it might be useful. If you're smart enough, you can use it and be the beneficiary. If you're going to hang on to that name, when you're going to court, you never make statements. If you make statements, you're being belligerent and controversial, and therefore because we're under martial law, they can grab you.
So you just ask questions? You don't say any statement, you just ask questions?
If you're going to, the question you ask is, under what authority do you use that name as personal identification? And that's about the only thing you have to say. And you've checkmated them, because they don't have the authority to use that name as personal identification. Neither do you. You're just going in asking the question. Excuse me, where does the authority come from, and under what authority are you using that name, Santos Bonacci, as personal identification? There's been a mistake. And immediately when you say that, their faces will either turn white, or they should dismiss or discharge the case on the spot. If they continue on, it's because they're going to test you. They're going to test your steel and find out whether you really know what you're talking about. So if you're going to make a statement, the only statement you should ever make in court is you should go in and say, I believe there has been a mistake regarding the name Santos Bonacci. I believe there has been a mistake. Because that way you're not being belligerent. They can't persecute you for your beliefs. If you have a belief, well, that's your belief. If you believe that there's been a mistake, well, then you're going to have a peaceful attitude of forgiveness. And since they now are aware of the fact, they're cognizant of the fact that you are aware of their ruse, well, they're going to be very, very appreciative of the fact that you've pointed to their attention that they've made a mistake. So they will excuse themselves and say, very sorry, sir. Yes, you're right. There has been a mistake. Case dismissed and discharged. Thank you very much for your time. Because you see, they need to tread carefully when they deal with that name too. And this is why there's a lot of ignorance out there, and they love the ignorance. Because if you're not aware of the fact that you have a name and you are not the name, well, then they can just continue doing business as usual. So going into court, one needs to be asking the question. And if you are asking, you are acting as king. As king means asking, same spelling. So they want kings with dominion coming into their courts. They do want it. Because the moment we all turn up as kings and we realize that we're sovereign and we don't need their services anymore, they will go away. And they will go away. In the near future, these magistrates and civil law and everything will just disappear. It will vanish, because people will be responsible. And the moment we are responsible and realize who we are, then we realize that we are more than that name. We only have that name, and it's a commercial utility.
Santos, And what about like, for example, how do you travel then? Like if you retake your dominium and you send this paperwork in, and like how do you travel? You don't need a passport anymore. Like what happens if I do this, right? Let's say in the United States, and you get all the paperwork correctly, and I want to go to Australia and I go into the airport. First of all, how do I get out of the airport in the United States? Because they're going to ask me, well, do you have a passport or an ID? How do I get on the plane, or how do I travel, or do I have to
Well,
renounce to those privileges as well?
well, not necessarily. No, you can have a passport. I mean, you're just the bearer of the passport. You're not the passport, and you're not creating joinder to the passport. You're not doing that at all. You're just showing them some something that identifies you legally with your real person. But you knowing who you are, you never create joinder to that name. You see? And so therefore you can use their system in that particular way. You can use it to travel and to be able to get around. But remember one thing, there's no law against traveling. There's no law against traveling. There is legislation against driving. Driving and traveling are two different things, you see. This is why they want you to have passengers in your car. They'll say, who's your passengers? Because if you've got passengers, well, then you're doing commerce. Now you can just call anyone else in the car friends who are journeying, because a passenger is also a legal term. A driver and a passenger, these are legal terms. Legal terms in their world of legislation. So that's why they ask you, do you realize you were driving 5 miles over the limit?
Mm,
They don't say you were traveling
right.
5 miles over the limit. Because they want you to agree that you were driving. Because if you were driving, then you were doing commerce. Then they can charge you.
Mm.
You see,
Santos,
but using a passport, you don't drive anything.
right, right. You're not.
You're
Um,
just traveling.
and what about um, I lost my train of thought there for a moment. But so then, what else would you be able to? So in other words, you're saying that we can continue. We can have this fictitious us, right, and use it to our advantages. In other words, use it in a way. For example, like let's say I want to go, to England, and I want to rent a car, and I have a document that says that I have a driver's license in the United States, let's say, and the rental car agency is going to ask me for a driver's license, right? So I can use that. I can use it that way. But yet, if the cops stop me, then in England, let's say, then I apply my human, legal, natural rights. Is that correct?
Well, yeah. Because they want you to show your driver's license so that they can then give you a vehicle or let you drive on their roads, etc. But that doesn't mean that you personally are going to be liable for a traffic ticket or anything like your person will be. And so, but you can discharge that debt when you go into court, and you just ask the judge to please discharge that debt honourably, and let's move on. It's just a bit of paper, so you give them the authority to pay that little bit of paper with another bit of paper, rather than with the money that you've earned. That's yours. That's private. You keep that. But they're trying to steal your private money, you see, and that's why they're hoping that you'll commit the blunder, be confused, and not know how to discharge that debt with a bit of paper, and give them other bits of paper which they can then put in their bank accounts. You see, so sure, if you get a fine, well, just realise that it's your person's fine, and your person is definitely able to pay for it because your person's dead. It's a corporation, and it can pay with paper anytime, as long as you are aware of this, you see. But on the other hand, if you're traveling and you kill someone, well, this is a good thing to have this registered person, because you've paid for insurance to pay for their lives. You see, you don't have to now pay for it out of your own pocket, because you've got a driver's license, and that includes an insurance which indemnifies you and enables you to pay for damage that you've caused while you were using the roads that the governments claim to control and maintain and own. So you're on their roads, and you've crashed into someone, someone's been killed. Well, then what you can do is you just use your person to discharge that debt.
Okay, I know what I was going to
And
ask.
these
Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
and these are loving provisions that are in government. Not all of it's bad. You know, the controllers. I mean, everything about banking is bad. Yeah, but not about government. You see, government um, has it's a two-faced coin. Yeah, yeah. There's aspects of government that can go against us, but there's also aspects of government that is all for us, depending on whether they operate in original jurisdiction or 14th Amendment jurisdiction. So, in other words, are they interacting with you? Because when a policeman comes to your door to help you, he actually helps you physically. Yeah, he'll help you. If you've got some trouble, your neighbour's got a gun and he's shooting, you call the police. The police will come there to protect you. They will stop the criminals that are hurting you. You see, so the government has to provide that service in real jurisdiction. But when they become suddenly policy officers for the banks, and they administer their policies, their legislation, well, then they become another creature which is there to do harm to you. So the government can do harm, and it can provide you with real benefits and protect your rights if you pull them into original jurisdiction and you use their services in the private in that way.
Santos,
So
what I was going to ask you is there a book or I don't know, document that you have that gives these kind of words that we should know, or so not to say in court or not to say to the police? Is there a book or something that our audience can get a hold of? Because from what I understand, I mean, even for someone that understands this, they could easily say the wrong word, and that will hold. That will be. They could use that against you. Correct? So, is it the Black Laws Dictionary that we should take a look at, or is there another, another document that make it easier for us to understand the kind of language or wording that we should say when we are faced in court or in front of a police? Santos?
look, there is some good websites. I can offer some really good websites. Would you like me to do that? Mm. Well, the Postmaster General that I mentioned before, James Thomas McBride, his website is notice-recipient.com. Notice-recipient.com. I'd be going in there, and I would click on The Cure. There's a link called The Cure, or there's a tab, The Cure. James Thomas McBride. And then I'd have a look at another website called suijuris.me. Okay, sui juris is spelt SUIJURIS .me. ME.
Okay, in those.
And there's a lot of information in there. If you contact these guys,
Uh-huh.
they will provide you with all sorts of information and documents for you to be able to, reclaim your beneficiary role of your trust. And once you do that, they will leave you alone. They will absolutely not come after you for any of those little pieces of paper. You see, those little dollars, those they're money.
Santos, I'll tell you a quick story. Back a few years ago, I was walking down the streets in this town in New Jersey called Newark, and the public television, the public channel, they was doing a piece on the streets, and they happened to pull me, and I was saying to myself, "Oh, this is going to be interesting." Because apparently they thought, this is just some guy walking down the street that doesn't know anything. So they pulled me to the side, and they asked me if they could ask me a couple of questions. So I said, sure. I said, what are you going to ask me? And he said, well, we want to ask you about this problem that we're having in New Jersey with the illegal immigrants. Right, so I was saying to myself, "Oh, they picked the wrong guy here." He says, "Well, what do you think?" They asked me this on camera. What do you think about this problem that we have with legal immigration? And what is what do you think about these illegal immigrants taking the jobs of Americans? And I mean, to make a long story short, I just said to him, "Well, I think the question that you should ask is if they're illegal." And they're doing harm in the United States, then why is it that the government issues them what's called an ITN number, a taxpayer identifications number, to file income tax? So I mean, they're illegal, they don't have a work permit, they cannot work, but yet they can pay taxes. So I said to her, I don't understand that concept. So after that, she said, well, okay, we got to go. But the question is, what about the illegal immigrants? Because it seems like this is the issue now. Right? Everybody's all over the place in Italy and in Europe. The illegal immigrants, we got to expel them because they're creating chaos. But yet in the United States, they don't do anything about sealing the borders or anything like that. So how the illegal immigrants play a role in this?
First of all, we must understand that the true nature of this illegal immigrant problem, the roots of the problem go to the banking industry. It's the banksters that want illegal immigrants. They are the ones that are ruining nations and countries. They are flooding countries with illegal immigrants because it gives them cash. It gives them a lot of money, you see. It's not really the governments. And so the banks require that they have their TIN number so that they can be processed. You see, once they've got their papers, they can be processed. You see, if an illegal immigrant has no papers at all, they can virtually, they can have speeding tickets. They can do that. There's no way that the policeman can actually grab them, nab them, and make extra cash from them. You see, but the banksters profit because what they do is it's twofold. What they're trying to achieve with illegal immigrants. First of all, they're trying to destabilize the countries and introduce a little bit of crime. They usually allow people with bad records to come into other countries. They handpick them. They know what they're doing. They see. In the 50s, when my parents came to this country as immigrants, it was so stringent. They couldn't have diseases. They couldn't have criminal records. They needed money. My parents, they had to qualify to come to this country. You see, so the government has stringent requirements, but the banks, on the other hand, are behind the illegal immigrants situation because they stand to benefit from this. Whereas we, the people, we would prefer to have good standing citizens come in and contribute to our countries, etc. So you see this problem is created, and all the problems in the world, wars, recessions, they're all created scientifically by the banksters, you see. These are parasites. And so this is why there's this hypocrisy. You know, you can't get your papers, you can't get work, but you can pay tax. And the only reason they do that is so that they can have an excuse to nab people via the name.
Because it is to their benefit, obviously. Otherwise, they wouldn't give them citizenship eventually, right? Because they can, let's say, if they marry a U.S. citizen, they can file for their petitions. If they have a child or they have a work contract, so it's not like it's totally illegal. You know, it's not like if they are saying no, we don't want anyone, and the U.S. government says, well, you know what, we're not going to allow anyone in, or we're going to seal the borders, and that's the end of it. That doesn't happen. And now the movement in the United States, in New York, I was just reading that they're passing a law now where they're going to be, if they stop, they're just going to stop people randomly and ask them for their papers, like in Nazi Germany, and then see if they're illegal or not. And if they're illegal, they're going to be deported. But it's not that they're getting deported or straight away. They'll be sent to some jail, which is privately owned, right? And that's the other big business. And they'll be held there for about a year or two. And obviously, they're going to make money on that as well. And then eventually, they'll deport these people. So it ain't that they don't want. It's not that they don't want people coming into the country, because most of those people, what do? They work cheap. You know, they do all the work that the regular Americans don't want to do. You know, all the dirty work. And obviously you don't have to pay for no insurance. You don't have to pay for any benefits to these illegal people. So it's all, as you say, it's just hypocrisy, and it's just the same nonsense that these nasty bankers want to continue enslaving people all over the world, right? But they give you that notion that, oh, we're against illegal immigrants, you know, but yet nothing is done. Santos, so to conclude tonight's conversation, what would be the first step for someone who's very new to this idea of understanding your natural rights or your human rights? What would be the first step for them to do?
Research. Research is the first step. Be responsible and know who you are, but certainly do some reading and start somewhere, because you'll find that with knowledge you will grow incrementally, exponentially. You'll build up a repertoire of information that will make you someone different than you were yesterday. Research. That's the only advice I give to people. I don't offer advice as to, you know, go down this track, go down that track, be a beneficiary, be a trustee, be an administrator, get out of the system. I'm not doing that anymore. I was saying to people, lose the name, win the game. Of course, ultimately that is true. But there's different kinds of people all over the world, and there's different situations and scenarios, and there's different everything. And so each one needs to do their own research. I've done it. I've been researching this for 5 years now, the law and legalese and the difference between the two. And I'm making a lot of headway in my own life. And I've used it over the years many, many times. I've used the information that I know. I've been pulled over by the police without a license. I've been in court. I've filmed policemen many times, knowing who I am. I've had sometimes I've had one stage I had about 15 policemen and sheriffs, and I was filming them, and I was holding them at bay when they were coming to steal property off a friend of mine. It's helped me in many ways. I've been served documents in court, and I have known what to say in order for the policeman to go away. I know what to do when I get There you go. This was in the bin. This came yesterday. These are infringement notices and fines and things like that. I grab these now, they just go straight in the bin because because I know who I am, and I'm not prepared to interact with that person that I have about those pitiful little fines or whatever they are. I don't even open them to find out what they are. I don't care. I don't need to. So, but some people would never be able to tolerate that, you know. I've been getting these letters for years. Sometimes I write on them and send them back. Sometimes I send them on to the Attorney General. Sometimes I just throw them in the bin, depending what mood I'm in. But some people can't handle that. They don't want those letters, so they go through the whole process of making sure that they don't get those letters. See, I don't care because I know I'm free, and I know I've found the system of freedom for me and knowing who I am.
But Santos, aren't you afraid at any point that they may find something to throw you in jail? I mean, because that is, I guess, in everyone's mind that's in this movement. Let's say, that maybe I shouldn't say this because maybe they can throw me in jail, and that's the end of my show. So are you afraid?
No, it's impossible. It's impossible for them to put someone like me in jail. It's just absolutely impossible. I mean, they've got many reasons if they want to. I don't know, according to them, I remember one policeman in court, he came with a pile of documents like this, and he said, Santos Bonacci, I think it was $50,000 of outstanding fines and warrants and everything like that, and he's had these documents to give to me. He thought I was going to take them like an idiot. And I said, no contract. That's all I said. That's the first thing that came to my mind. And he dropped them in front of my feet and he walked off. He said, you've been served. And he had all his policemen with him and security people and everything like that. And I said, you've just littered. I'm going to charge you for littering if you don't pick that up. And I walked away. And that's that. I haven't heard any. That was 2 years ago. I haven't heard anything when I filmed policemen on, and I'm not a very friendly person. So when I film policemen, I tell them I know what I'm doing, and in the past I have been very vicious toward them. These days I would never do that. Now I'll be a peaceful inhabitant because I know better who I am. So if I'm going to be filming them, I'm going to be very peaceful. I won't be vicious like I was in the past. But I've been very vicious with them. They've had many reasons to pick me up, but they don't, because they can tell that I know who I am. If you show them that you are an adult and you know the law and you know that you are divine, they'll leave you alone. They will leave you alone. They are looking for soft targets.
That's the same concept as the bully in the block, right? They always pick on the little guys, and because they always take it, but the day that they stand up to them, that's the day it ends. All right, Santos, very, very good. Thank you once again for another enlightened hour with your wonderful knowledge. Thank you, Santos. I'll see you Wednesday. Ciao.
Thank you, Johnny.
Well, that's going to do it for us, folks. Thank you for being here with us one more night and sharing truth with us. I'll see you tomorrow for another edition of the Truth Hour in Spanish at 7 o'clock Ecuadorian time, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in the U.S., and in Europe, I believe, is 2 a.m. Have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow. Ciao.